Ladies and gentlemen, let's get into the video. We're going to be doing a tech news roundup. I guess the most important and probably the biggest piece of news, although not really a surprise to anyone, is the fact that the Fury X2 is indeed going to be launching in December, mind you, and already people are receiving pre-release versions of the GPU, including Johan Anderson. If you're not too familiar with Johan Anderson, you probably are. He is the technical director on the Frostbite engine over at Electronic Arts, which of course, Frostbite engine is being used for a myriad of EA's games, including but not limited to titles such as Dragon Age Inquisition. Now, there have already been several reports regarding the Fury X2, as you're probably aware. We've actually covered these in the past, but essentially all AMD have been doing is circulating these cards, working out what specifications they can release those GPUs in. Primarily clock speeds, because let's face it, that's probably about the most important thing that they can ascertain for the card, as well as things such as stream processors. So if the reports are accurate, the dual Fury is going to run at 1000 MHz, which is pretty impressive considering that would be the core clock speed. Meanwhile, the HBM2 memory is going to be running at 500 MHz. Obviously, the same caveats of dual GPUs will remain in place, so each of the GPUs will receive its own 4 GB of memory, but naturally, this memory is not cumulative unless it's running, say, DirectX 12, in which case, then that's great for that game in question. Oh, and you can probably imagine that this card will not be supported on a 32-bit Windows operating system. To be honest with you, I don't know who is going to be running 32-bit Windows on a hardcore gaming rig at this point. I don't know many people, but still, you know, just from me to you, if you are doing that, you might want to rethink your priorities. However, typically AMD are going to be aiming for at least an 80% boost in 4K and 1440p gaming over, let's say, a single version of the GPU running at the same frequencies. So that's fair enough. I mean, I think 80% is pretty consistent with what I would expect of an improvement over a single GPU, excuse me. Anything less than that is kind of like, well, why am I spending all of this money? Obviously, primarily this is down to AMD's XDMA technology, which, to simplify things for this particular video, simply lowers the communication overhead between multiple GPUs. AMD's GPUs in the past did have a lot of problems with crossfire scaling, and there was of course a lot of frame rate hitching and inconsistencies, and that obviously wasn't ideal for high resolution gaming, but they've managed to fix a lot of that once again with XDMA. It's not a particularly new technology, it's not like it's just popped up for, let's say, the Fury X2 or anything like that. It was around even on the R9 290X for the sake of argument, and has been around for some time on the later versions of the GCN architecture, but it's quite nice, and obviously it's paying AMD dividends at the fact that they have actually developed this improved version of Crossfire. If you really want the numbers, supposedly the FP32 performance is going to be around 16.3 to 16.4 T-flops. That's a lot of T-flops. That's absolutely insanity. And that's thanks to 8,192 stream processors. That's quite literally double that of the Fury X. My own caveat is that, as you would expect, unsure if I'd necessarily recommend this GPU unless you really need it and you've got the cash. The reason I say that is because, once again, if you're on a fairly tight budget, and by a tight budget I mean you can upgrade, but you're typically that person who upgrades like once every 2 years, then you might be better off just waiting for the next generation of GPUs, especially if you've got something fairly decent as is. But obviously the normal caveats are that it's completely and utterly up to you. Up for you? What the hell was that about? Anyway, so the next one that I do want to discuss, because this one actually is not just impacting AMD, it may end up impacting us as customers, or end customers more specifically, and that is TSMC. So GlobalFoundries could well be ending up sold to a new owner. Now this is actually kind of ironic because GlobalFoundries are working on a 14LP and LPE node for AMD. So theoretically that was better than TSMC's 16FF node. Now the real weird thing here is that obviously GlobalFoundries has been pretty much instrumental in AMD, and we all know that this is going to be used for Zen's fabrication, and Zen is pretty much going to be, particularly for the CPU division of AMD, absolutely instrumental, absolutely critical for their future. But a report from Bloomberg says, and I quote, Abu Dhabi's investment arm is considering a sale of all or part of chipmaker GlobalFoundries Incorporated as the Emirate explores asset disposals amid a slump in crude oil. People familiar with the matter have said Sovereign Fund Manager has held early talks with private and potential acquirers. The people said asking not to be identified as information is private. No final decision has been made and discussions could fall apart. But the transaction value is valued between 15 to 20 billion US dollars. What does this mean for AMD? Well, Brian Lott has stated, and I quote, GlobalFoundries has grown significantly with with fabs on 3 continents and world-class technology and businesses. We continue to be committed to this industry and to growing GlobalFoundries to meet customers. Bear in mind, customers in this case are not us. Customers in this case are companies like AMD, just to clarify, to meet customers' leading-edge technology requirements and providing them with a world-class service. Once again, to continue quoting Bloomberg, Abu Dhabi is reviewing state-owned companies including Mubadala for potential asset sales as the slump in crude oil pressures the Emirates' finances. People familiar with the matter said last month the Emirate has a long-term plan to build a chip factory there to diversify its economy away from dependence on oil, and the company has also been investing. In October, GlobalFoundries acquired International Business Machines, IBM, with IBM paying them actually $1.5 billion to take their unprofitable business off its hands. The same month, the Mubadala formed a joint venture with to take a 50% stake in 3 Spanish mines. Now, do bear in mind that GlobalFoundries, this is outside of the quotes from Bloomberg. Do bear in mind that GlobalFoundries was acquired by Mubadala way back in 2009, so essentially it is one of the most advanced chip fabrications facilities on the planet, and they once again are keenly responsible for actually the creation of AMD's 14nm chips, which, let's face it, it's going to be very interesting how even a small change at the facility could actually impact AMD. How much it's going to impact AMD when we know, once again, AMD are promising us Zen for next year, but obviously the reports are varying all the time of when that's actually going to happen, whether it's going to be, say, the first half of the year. It's very unlikely, but the, let's say, second half of the year, let's say the 3rd quarter, 4th quarter, it's just unknown. Hopefully for AMD's sake, it's not going to be anything too bad. But anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. I'm going to get going, so hopefully I shall see you soon. Take care, bye for now.